Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have some news out of the state of New Hampshire where Chris Bright is the first Republican to officially declare his candidacy in New Hampshire's 1st congressional district. This district, which is currently represented by Democrat Chris Pappas, is going to be an open race in 2026 as Pappas is running for the New Hampshire Senate seat that is up in 2026. So this could be a real potential here for this district to get competitive. The article from New Hampshire Public Radio, NHPR, says that Republican Chris Bright has joined the 2026 race for Congress in New Hampshire's 1st district. Bright, who sought the same seat last year and placed 4th in the GOP primary, is the first Republican to officially declare his candidacy for the open seat. Current 1st District Congressman Chris Pappas, a Democrat, is running for U.S. Senate, as I mentioned. Bright lives in Derry and is a business executive who founded a CrossFit gym and a facilities management company that works in EV charging. He's also a West Point graduate and former Army paratrooper who served in Bosnia and Kosovo. In a press release last Tuesday announcing his candidacy, Bright said Congress needs more people with leadership experience. This country has its challenges, and I'm tired of the fighting and dysfunction, Bright said. There's a better way, and I'm running to lead smarter and secure the future for our children and grandchildren. Several Democrats have already declared their candidacies in the 1st District. Former Portsmouth City Councilor Stephanie Shaheen, the daughter of Jean Shaheen, is running. Former Obama administration official Maura Sullivan is running, and Hampton Select Board member Carly Barrant is also running. Meanwhile, Dover State Rep Alice Wade has formed an exploratory committee for this race. And now just a quick look at that primary in 2024, as the article mentioned. Chris Bright, who obviously I'm talking about today's video, finished in 4th place, getting about 13.1% of the vote. Of the 66,619 votes cast in this district in the primary, Chris Bright got about 8,733 of them. Russell Prescott, the Republican nominee for the House in 2024, won the primary with 26.1%. Holly Noveletsky finished in 2nd place with 23.9%, and Joseph Lavasser finished 3rd with 23.1%. So this was a very evenly split primary, very competitive primary, where only about under 2,000 votes separated Prescott from Noveletsky and Lavasser in this race. So this was a very close race, and likely if these candidates run again in 2026, will likely be equally as competitive. But Chris Bright is joining this race early in the hopes of improving on his 13.1% that he got last time around. So this district for New Hampshire 1, as I already mentioned, has 3 Democrats running: Maura Sullivan, Stephanie Shaheen, and Carly Barrant. Right now, it looks like the primary is pretty wide open. There hasn't been any polling done yet in this race, so we really don't have a good idea at how this is going to go. But we do know that Chris Pappas, the U.S. representative, is running for Senate. And on the Republican side of things, Chris Bright is now in the race. All 3 Republicans who finished in the top 3 last time, Russell Prescott, Holly Noveletsky, and Joseph Lavasser, are all publicly expressed interest in running for this district again. So we may see a primary rematch of 2024 in 2026, which again should be another very close and hotly contested primary. As for this district overall, I don't believe I touched on this part yet. The 1st district in New Hampshire is based in southeastern New Hampshire and includes Greater Manchester, the Seacoast, and Lakes region of the state, and the Democrat representative, Chris Pappas, is the incumbent representative. Now I'll be going over some recent election results in just one moment. Cook Political Report has this race listed as likely Democrat. Inside Elections has it as lean Democrat. For the Cook Political Voting Index, the Cook PVI for this district in 2023 was listed at even, not having a Republican or Democrat skew based on recent election results and data. After 2025, it is now considered Democrat +2. So you could call this district a lean Democratic district based on the Cook PVI of the 2025 update that they had there. As for the election results in 2024, Chris Pappas defeated Russell Prescott by about 8%, 54 to 46. Pappas getting 218,577 votes. Prescott 185,936. So Pappas won by a likely Democratic margin, a pretty large margin for this district as Democrat +2. Pappas won by about 8 points. And when you look at the key areas of this district, the way New Hampshire breaks it down on the New York Times map is they go by town, not by county. So these are all individual towns on the map. The largest town area in this district is the city of Manchester, and it's 50,932 votes. And Manchester, which happens to be Pappas's hometown, voted for Pappas 59 to 41. And that's very significant, as Manchester currently has a Republican mayor and is usually much more of a competitive town, competitive election here, but Pappas, being from there, was able to win it by about 18 points, a very, very big win. For a Republican to win this district, Manchester cannot be this big of a margin of victory, and without Pappas at the top of the ticket, the margin will probably be smaller in 2026 than it was in 2024. But a Republican needs to be getting pretty close to breaking even at Manchester to likely be winning this district. But Pappas won very big here. The second largest town in this district is the city of Dover, right here, which voted overwhelmingly for Pappas over Prescott. This is a very big Democratic area. Derry, a suburb around the greater Manchester area, right here. Third largest town in this district, voted for Prescott 51-49. A good win for Prescott, but Prescott's margins need to be a lot higher than this to be winning this district. Merrimack, another suburban town, right here in between Manchester and Nashua, kind of right outside of Nashua right here. It voted for Pappas by about 7 points. Again, in a close election, if the Republicans are winning this district, Merrimack in all likelihood is probably going red. But Chris Pappas did very well here and won this town by about 6 points. Rochester, another competitive area, which is going to be right here, voted 53-47 for Pappas. This district in 2024 really showed that in a lot of the key suburban areas, essentially Chris Pappas either outperformed in all of them, or he won pretty much every single one of them. Londonderry, which is a very competitive town, usually though votes for the Republicans. I believe it voted for President Trump in the presidential race. Here, it voted for Chris Pappas 50.9% to 49.1%. So the key suburban areas, inland areas like Hooksett, Goffstown, Bedford, Merrimack, Londonderry, these areas all need to be going Republican for the Republican to win this district, and Chris Pappas won them all in 2024. A very big, impressive win for Pappas, and that's something Republicans are going to be probably watching for 2026. But Pappas showed Democrats how to do well in this district, how to win it, and how to win it relatively reliably. It also goes into the greater Seacoast area with Seabrook, Hampton, Northampton, Rye, and then leading into the town or city of Portsmouth, which is going to be a big Democratic vote area. And then there's not as much population, but it goes up the eastern part of the state of New Hampshire, leading into the Lakes region. For instance, you have Alton, Wolfboro, and Tuftonboro up in here, and up into the White Mountains area up near Bartlett and Hart's location as well. There's not as much population up here. Laconia is probably one of the more larger population centers right here, and it voted for Pappas 50.3 to 49.7, and the surrounding towns as well. So Pappas showed that he won this district by a pretty large margin in the likely Democratic category. The size of the lead here, as you can see, most of New Hampshire's population lies in Rockingham County right here, Hillsborough County right here, and Merrimack County right here. And it makes sense that this district has about 2 out of the 3, or most of the 2 out of the 3 largest counties in the state represented in this district. It shows the main vote centers here in Portsmouth, in Dover, and in Manchester, and kind of the area that's caught between these two areas. This is where the district is really won or lost by Pappas and the Democrats, or Prescott and the Republicans, and Pappas did very well in 2024. 2022 is a very similar story. Chris Pappas faces off against Caroline Leavitt, who obviously is now President Trump's press secretary. At the time, she was then candidate Caroline Leavitt, and it's a very similar map to what happened in 2024, only about a 0.1% difference between what Leavitt did and what Russell Prescott did. And again, you see Hooksett blue, Goffstown blue, Bedford blue, Merrimack, Londonderry, Derry being relatively pretty close, and then again, the Seacoast being very narrowly blue, and you go into the rural parts of the state are also pretty reliably blue as well. The map really not too different from all that. I will show what 2020 looked like, which I think is the probably closest we're going to see in terms of a competitiveness election in 2026. If it's going to be more competitive than 2024, this is what the map could look like. Now, in the 2020 map, where Chris Pappas versus Matt Mowers in this district ended up being about a 5-point win for Pappas, this was the narrowest election in Pappas's tenure as representative from the 1st district. This is the closest Republicans got to flipping it, and still Pappas won by 5 points. And this map, it's split up a little differently. Instead of going by town, it went by the overall Manchester area here. And we can see here that Pappas won the Hillsborough, Manchester, Merrimack, all that area added up by roughly about 10 points or so. Now, in the Rockingham congressional part, it was won by Pappas by about 3 points. Merrimack was won by around, or the Merrimack County area was won by Mowers by about 2.5 to 3. The Stratford area was won by 16 points for Pappas, and then Belknap went about 11 points for Pappas. Carroll narrowly went for Mowers by 49.3, and then Grafton by about 6. And the map's being a little bit buggy, it's messing the names up and stuff, but the largest area overall in this district is the Manchester area. And when you sort by total votes here, Manchester, Dover, Derry, Rochester, Merrimack, the populations still line up town-wise the same. And we see here, again, the numbers are messed up, but Pappas won by 16 in Merrimack, Pappas won in Dover by 31. Mowers did better in Derry, winning it by 6, but Rochester went to Pappas by 1.5, Merrimack +4 for Pappas, Londonderry +2 for Mowers, Bedford +1 for Mowers. So Mowers did better in the suburbs than Leavitt and Prescott did, but still not enough to be able to make this race more competitive than under 5 points. So what we're watching for 2026 is especially the suburbs surrounding Manchester and Merrimack, and these areas, seeing if they get more competitive for 26. Those are the key areas I'm watching for in this district. This district plays an important role in the House majority as well, as the Democrats only need to flip 3 seats to win back the House in 2026. If the Republicans were able to pull off an upset in the 1st district, that would likely be indicative of there not being a Democratic wave in 2026 and the Republicans doing far better than every single expectation has for them right now if they're winning this district. Given the 2026 election environment, we probably should be expecting New Hampshire 1 to go to the Democratic side, and it should be relatively early on in the night. New Hampshire's polls, all the polls in the state closed by around 8 p.m., so we should probably have a call in New Hampshire in between like 9 and 9:30 p.m. It shouldn't go on too long. New Hampshire usually counts their votes pretty quickly. So that's all I have for you in today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed that video. Make sure to leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video. Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm talking about the Illinois 9th Congressional District, where there is a very competitive Democratic primary underway. So just to first give you some background information on this race, the 2016 midterms, for the U.S. Representative Jan Schakowsky, the 9th District, announcement a month ago that she will not seek another term has energized the Democratic primary, launching Evanston and other district suburbs into a fresh campaign season just a month after local races wrapped up on April 1st, as the time this article was written. The primary election will be held on March 17th, 2026, to decide which candidates advance to the general election on November 3rd for the Democratic and Republican parties. While the general election includes higher ticket races for the governor's office and an open U.S. Senate seat, local attention is sure to focus on the now open race for the 9th Congressional District, which Schakowsky has represented since 1999 and is considered one of the most reliably Democratic seats in the region. So it has a bunch of candidates in this race. And instead of just reading off the article, I'm going to go through the list on the Wikipedia page here. But I want you to know that it is now an open race because the longtime Democratic incumbent is not running for re-election. And this district, the 9th District, is based in northern Chicago and the North Shore, taking in Evanston and Skokie. The longtime incumbent Democrat, Jan Schakowsky, who was initially elected in 1998 and re-elected with 68.4% in 2024, is not running for re-election. And this is a very competitive Democratic primary here. A lot of candidates are running. Kat Abugazala, I believe is how you pronounce that. I definitely butchered that, but again, you can correct me in the comments below. Journalist and social media influencer is running. Bushra Amawala, a member of the Skokie School District 73.5 Board of Education, is running. Daniel Biss, the mayor of Evanston from 2021 to president and candidate for governor in 2018. Laura Fine, a state senator from the 9th District, is running. Justin Ford, an environmental health and safety professional, is running. Miracle Jenkins, a community organizer. And Howard Rosenblum, member of the Illinois Human Rights Commission and former CEO of the National Association of the Deaf, are all running in this district. Also worth noting, Mike Simmons, a state senator, has expressed interest in running. 2 other Democrats, Danny Goldberg and Juan Hanna, are potential candidates as well. This is a wide open Democratic primary, and the purpose of doing today's video is we have a new poll in this race, where right now Daniel Bliss has 17% of the vote to Kat Abugazala's 10%, Laura Fine's 8%, other 12%, and 53% undecided. So this is a wide open race right now. This is completely wide open. We don't totally know how it's going to go yet, but Daniel Bliss has an early lead of about 7% over his nearest Democratic opponent. And the poll was taken in between the middle of June 12th to June 15th, so it's still relatively recent in polling terms. But 53% undecided is a big topic of conversation here. With so many candidates running, not many of them very well known, it seems in the or overall in the state, maybe even the district, it's likely going to be a very competitive, wide open primary leading into the final days and eventually into that March primary election day in 2026. On the Republican side, 2 Republicans are currently running: Rockio Cleveland, an educational paraprofessional and interpreter, and Seth Cohen, a nonprofit executive and nominee for the district in 2024. But there's not really too much to talk about on the Republican side of things due to the fact that Cook Politico and Inside Elections both have this race listed as safe for the Democrats. 2 other Republicans that could potentially run are Joanne Lassonde, a advertising writer and nominee, and Todd Ricketts, the former finance chair of the RNC and co-owner of the Chicago Cubs and brother of U.S. Senator Pete Ricketts. But again, this district is very much likely expected to be safe for the Democrats. And when you look at the map here, there are a lot of Democratic House seats in this area here, in the Chicago area, and the 9th district is right here with Jan Schakowsky. Now, when you look at the Cook PVI for this district and trying to get on the 9th here, this one is Democrat plus 19. So by the margins of 15 points or plus being safe, this is a Democrat safe district according to the Cook Political Voting Index for 2025 and for 2023. And make no mistake, this race obviously is not anywhere near being competitive. On 270towin.com, it also shows that this race is safe Democrat in the consensus rankings for 2026 without much of a doubt here. Looking at the recent election history in this area, this district actually only consists of about 3 counties. So in terms of the votes, it's actually pretty easy to keep track of. The 3 counties that have parts of it are Cook County, McHenry County, and Lake County. Cook being this one right here, which is the closest to Chicago, by far is the most population. Of the 338,828 votes that were cast in this district in 2024, 269,359 of them came out of Cook County. So overwhelming majority of this district is represented in Cook County. It makes sense. It's a Democratic stronghold, voted for Schakowsky by approximately 46%, 73-27 for Janet Schakowsky over Seth Cohen. The other 2 counties, though they're much smaller in population than Cook, were actually very competitive. McHenry County voted for Schakowsky over Seth Cohen by very narrow margins, 0.29%, 50.1 to 49.9, roughly about 100 votes or so, separating Schakowsky and Cohen in this county. So very close in McHenry. And then Lake County was also very competitive. It was won by the Democrat 52 to 48. But again, the margins of victory in these counties for the Democrat, even though they're both won by the Democrat very narrowly, Cook County so overwhelmingly Democrat that it doesn't really matter what these 2 counties do in terms of overall votes. They could both vote for Republicans by large margins, and it really wouldn't matter due to how overwhelming Cook County is. I mean, just looking at the numbers here, this is roughly about 124,000 net votes out of Cook County for Schakowsky over Seth Cohen. The numbers just don't exist for the Republicans, even if they won every single vote in these counties, which obviously they're not going to do. The math isn't close to make up the margins to win this district in such a heavily Democratic district. That's how it was in 2024. 2022, believe it or not, was even more Democrat, where Cook voted 77-23 for Schakowsky over the Republican. And these 2 counties, Lake County, also competitive, about an 8-point win for the Democrat, McHenry about a 4-point win. So it's even more blue in 2022. Obviously, for 2026, I have it as safe Democrat, as one of the 169 seats that 270 to Win's consensus ranking has being safe Democrat for 2026, as the Democrats try and flip 3 seats that the Republicans hold to win back the House in 2026. But still, I thought this was interesting news for the primary, and that could get very, very competitive. Make sure to leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts about this video. Who do you think is going to win that Democratic primary? Can't wait to check all that out. Thank you so much for watching. Again, please remember to hit like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in a future video. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today we're looking at the 2025 New Jersey Governor General election, where the first 2 polls have come out for the general election race, one coming after the primary was completed, and this is what they show. Early polling suggests that the general election for the New Jersey governor's race has kicked off with Democrat Mickey Sherrill holding a slight, or possibly not so slight, lead over Republican Jack Ciattarelli. 2 privately contracted voter surveys, both now made public, came to different results. Sherrill, a congresswoman, and Ciattarelli, the 2021 GOP gubernatorial candidate, both faced multiple opponents before winning their respective primaries on June 10th. One of the recent polls was carried out with 785 adults from May 28th to May 30th by Survey USA. This poll was commissioned by members of a Democratic-leaning organization called Education Reform Now Advocacy. So Survey USA is going to be more of a Democratic slanted poll. The poll had Cheryl with a 51 to 38% lead over Ciattarelli, with 12% of the sample group saying they are undecided. Respondents who were expected to vote in the election numbered about 576. Approximately 65% told Survey USA that they believe young people will be a little worse off or a lot worse off financially than previous generations. Other questions were on what 2 issues elected officials should focus on to improve the future of young people. The statistics were 64% answered reducing inflation and the cost of everyday expenses, 32% reducing healthcare costs, 31% chose improving public schools, 25% making college more affordable, 21% chose stopping job outsourcing and automation of good-paying jobs. Now, the second poll was carried out with 600 adults June 11th through 12th by the National Research Incorporation, which was hired by members of the Ciattarelli campaign. So this poll is a Republican-aligned pollster, so this is going to be more Republican-friendly and favorably. This poll, which was limited to likely November voters, found Cheryl ahead of Ciattarelli 45% to 42%. In an email to supporters, the Cheryl campaign noted that this lead falls within the poll's estimated margin of error of plus or minus 4% and can be seen as a statistical tie. As with the Survey USA poll, 12% of respondents said they were undecided. The National Research Poll listed what it tagged as instructive signals in the results while concluding that change is a dominant theme. Ciattarelli led by 8 points among unaffiliated likely voters. Ciattarelli and Cheryl were in a tie for support from respondents who described themselves as working class or middle class. Cheryl led among upper middle class and upper class voters. Cheryl had a 1-point advantage among those respondents who had voted in the 2021 governor race. And Ciattarelli led 72 to 14 among those who think the state is moving in the wrong direction, and by an even wider margin among those who agreed they wanted to shake up state government. A question about Cheryl's personal wealth and its growth since her election to the U.S. Representatives reportedly drew incredibly negative responses. Other Democratic primary candidates had erred in not emphasizing that topic, the company concluded. Joe Smith is a N-E Philly native, transplanted in South Jersey 36 years ago. Keegan I, now in government in South Jersey, is a former editor and current senior staffer for the Daily Journal in Vinland, Courier Post in Cherry Hill, and the Burlington County Times, and wrote this article. So this is very interesting because these are the first polls we have to go off of the 2025 New Jersey governor's race. And they show some things that are similar and some things that are different. The first poll, which the second poll, the Republican poll sponsored by Ciattarelli's campaign, shows a close race that could be considered under the margin of error. The second poll by Survey USA shows a Democratic lead, but outside the margin of error of 6.1%. So this poll at 6.1% margin of error has a larger margin of error, but still, given Cheryl's lead over Ciattarelli, Cheryl does lead outside that margin of error on that one. Where in the Republican-aligned poll, it is under the margin of error. But two things are also true, that both polls show 12% undecided. So assuming both of these polls in a vacuum are correct, this means that a good percent of New Jersey voters are still undecided on who they're going to support between Cheryl and Ciattarelli going into November. And it could be that possibly that both of these candidates don't have the highest name recognition, despite the fact that Cheryl is a U.S. representative and Ciattarelli was the nominee for governor back in 2021. It could just be that a lot of voters in New Jersey aren't paying attention to the governor's race yet, and likely will be probably come Labor Day and going into October, and then the last week of October going into November is when a lot of attention starts to pick up on these fall races. That could be a situation. It could also be that voters just don't really know who these candidates are. As for what the numbers show, I mean, look, you'd always rather be winning than losing, so I think this does show, even in the Republican-aligned pollster, that is close. Mickey Sherrill leads in both of these polls, which to me suggests that Mickey Sherrill, at very least, starts out with a narrow poll. Now, I don't think Mickey Sherrill, come Election Day, is going to be winning by the, 13% lead or so that she has over Jack Ciattarelli. I think that would be like 2018 levels of Democratic blowout win if that were to happen, and I don't think that's going to be the case. But I'm not sure exactly if the 3-point lead for Cheryl over Ciattarelli, which is what we saw Phil Murphy versus Jack Ciattarelli be in 2021, is necessarily where the race is right now either. But again, you have to be a little careful here because they're both Republican and Democratic pollsters. But this race does show it's likely going to be very close, And there's not too much to read into these polls, all that much. There's not really too many conclusions to jump to, other than the fact that this race is very early on and likely going to be very competitive leading into November. The recent election results for the governor's race in New Jersey back in 2021 showed a very close race of Phil Murphy winning by 3.2% against Jack Ciattarelli. And we saw Ciattarelli improve in a lot of key areas in New Jersey that did vote Democrat but did improve on the margins, like up here, in these areas of the state, in this area of the state as well. And a large reason being that we're watching New Jersey so closely was 2024. Harris only defeated Trump here by 5.9%. We saw Bergen County go very narrowly for Harris over Trump. Passaic flipped to Trump. Morris flipped to Trump. Atlantic, Cumberland, Gloucester. These counties all flipped to Trump's direction, where back in 2020, they all voted for Joe Biden. So the Republicans doing very well in New Jersey, despite losing the state in 2024, making such a massive shift in a 4-year time span, shifting approximately 10% from 2020 to 2024, is giving Republicans a lot of optimism in this governor's race and attempting to try and win this in November. It also needs to be worth noting, back in 2017, the last time there was a governor's race where President Trump was the president, Phil Murphy defeated the Republican Gaudano by 14.1%. That is a likely, almost on the verge of being a safe Democratic win. So when you compare the trends from 2021 to 2017, New Jersey shifted 10.9% towards the Republican direction. So there's no denying that New Jersey is shifting to the Republican side, despite it being a safe Democratic state for a long time and now becoming more of a likely Democratic state. It's certainly shifting in the Republican direction. The question will be, in the year 2025, when historically these elections are a rebuke of the incumbent president and the incumbent president's party, will Republicans be able to buck that trend and be able to have Jack Ciattarelli win a very tough race in an election environment that probably won't be all that friendly for him? Or will the historical trends be correct and Mickey Sherrill and the Democrats should be poised for a very good night, as the early polls show that they will be in the state of Virginia? Will that be the case? Right now, it's all we're trying to figure out what the national environment is going to be, though historical precedent does suggest that both these governor's races should end up being Democratic wins in all likelihood come November elections. Right now, my way too early predictions for this race, the map's a little messed up here. Here we go. Is for New Jersey and Virginia. I have long said that I think Virginia is going to be more Democratic margin of victory than New Jersey, and I am sticking with that. Right now, I have Virginia being a likely Democratic win. New Jersey, I have just by the narrowest of margins being a lean Democratic win, with about 4.5% for Mickey Sherrill over Jack Ciattarelli right now. But this is certainly going to be a very close election, and one that certainly is capable of going to both Sherrill and Ciattarelli, as the poll showed. But I think it'd be a mistake to not say at this point in time, given the election environment of 2025 is expected to be, that Mickey Sherrill has a lead over Jack Ciattarelli at this time. The question will be, does that manifest come November, and what will the voter turnout percentages be? Because that will have a very big impact. But New Jersey, I think, does start out in the lean Democratic category. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts, and hope to see you in a future video.